small. Now, how do small-scale stories scale up into large-scale stories? And here I think, again, the research tells me a number of things happened. One is all these policies I talked about, family planning, education for children and girls, oral rehydration therapy to bring down diarrhea, immunization, all of these things happened at the same time, very quickly, and at scale. And as a result, synergies were possible. When you bring down your fertility, you're able to afford education for your children. When you can afford education for your children, you're also able to make sure that they get better jobs. So all of these different policy measures happened at the same time. In fact, Fazle Hassan Abid, who was the founder of BRAC, is supposed to have said, Schumacher said small is beautiful, but in Bangladesh, large is necessary. So things went to scale very, very fast. The other thing that really struck me is the importance of education. From a very early point, in 1982, the government of the time experimented with secondary school stipends for girls to make sure they didn't drop out at secondary level. It proved successful, and in 1994, it was adopted. And one thing that comes up again and again, and I have a footnote 11 in one of my chapters, which lays out all the different quantitative studies that tells you the impact that female education on your fertility, on your age of marriage, on whether your daughters got educated, whether you got a job in the formal sector. So there's something very transformative about education that we often miss out. And the final way in which what is happening at the macro level and what is happening at the micro level translated, yes, this is the power of education, and that's the footnote. One of the other ways in which, could we just go back? In which the changes scaled up were mechanisms mechanisms that we have all seen in the social sciences. The idea of role models. A rickshaw puller is taking children to school, children of a teacher, and he sees that teacher and he thinks, one day when my daughters grow up, I want them to be like that teacher. There's demonstration effects. You see a family with very large numbers of children going around the village with plates in their hands begging for food, and you decide, that's not going to happen to me. I'm going to have fewer children. Tipping points. At what stage you had to fight to get your daughter into a school because it was the son's privilege. By the 1990s, you asked a woman, why are you sending your daughter to school? She says, oh, because everybody else is sending their daughters to school. So what starts out as a challenge to structures, over time becomes so widely expected. I think the phrase they use is like dal bhat. It's like a normal everyday meal. It's normalized. So in a sense, the forces for change in Bangladesh were both poverty, but change that comes as a result of poverty doesn't get sustained. Because the moment you get better off, you go back to the path. But change that comes as a result of opportunity, the governments, the NGOs, the community-based services, those changes are likely to be sustained. And we saw those changes happening in Bangladesh. Next slide, please. And I've just given you some quotes about the way in which women are renegotiating norms. So, when in the early days, family planning is simple, but not to practice is also simple, because a woman is responsible for her family's welfare. You carry your parda not by what you wear, the parda is in the mind. If I take a loan, if taking a loan is a sin, it's my husband who is the sinner, because he sent me to take the loan. And I'll tell you this, if none of those people who are telling me not to, to bail myself are willing to feed me. And this woman in 1987 said, a woman who understands won't show her power. The one who doesn't understand will show it. And this is that thing about hidden and renegotiating. And the heading of one of my chapters is we follow Sharia, but we follow Marfat too. And Marfat allows you much more room for individual conscience rather than having a clergy telling you what to do. And garment workers said, how can they ask for dowry for us? We are the dowry. And one woman said, I didn't get my rights earlier, and I cannot say that I get them even now, but at least I know what they are, and I can teach my children. And the final quote, which I liked very much, is fate. We all believe in fate. Fate will determine the kind of life my daughters will have, but a mother can influence fate. So these are the ways that women are talking. And you can see that struggle to remake the world without rejecting it altogether. Next slide, please. So, if we go back to the paradox, one person said that some paradox can be easily resolved by showing that the premise was slightly false, that the inferences include unjustified steps, and that the conclusions turned out to be more plausible than initially thought. I would say the Bangladesh paradox was not a paradox, because actually the conclusions are plausible. If we don't look to Western notions of theory, so Bangladesh was only regarded as a paradox because we did not conform to the West's account of economic growth. First you get growth, then you get progress. It did not conform to the West's notion of modernization, that as you become modern, you throw out religion and you become very reasonable and rational. And it did not conform to the theories of demographic transition. Infant mortality, fertility decline happened almost before infant mortality decline. So our story was the product of the confluence of structures and cultures that we inherited as part of our history. And our achievement was that we worked with what we had, as unpromising as it was. Next slide, please. So I want to end by asking, is this paradox sustainable? We all know that we've had an uprising in Bangladesh and we've been through 2 years of a very shaky period. A lot of the gains of the past have been lost. And some ways, what was surprising about Bangladesh, those things haven't gone away. Economic growth has risen, yes. Poverty has declined, yes. But inequality has risen hugely. So very little of this growth is trickling down to poor people. So you have a job poor pattern of growth and migration abroad with all its risks and opportunities. Much of the employment is informal, but aspirations have risen with education, and that frustration is what led to the July uprising. Our track record on governance has remained poor, and during the last few years of Hasina's rule, worsened. And it was that worsening of a rule that brought along the July Revolution. And yet, the Open Society Barometer of 2023 found that 91% of Bangladeshis wanted to be democratically governed. 88%, at the highest percentage of all the countries, right, 30 countries, 88% believe that human rights have been a force of good for the world. And 83% believe that